IOG.
Last fall, the IOG had its first Public Governance Exchange Learning Forum in Toronto. Over 100 OPS public servants and PGEx members came, and we talked about governance in this fiscal environment. Our special guest was Tom Gash, Program Director for the Institute for Government in the UK. And he talked about how the UK government is transforming the public safety and justice portfolio. He elaborated on the UK reform agenda, its impact on accountability, and the lessons Canada could learn. By the way, there is more on this topic in the February supplement of the Canadian Government Executive Magazine, which is available on the CGE website or at iog.ca. Here's an excerpt of an interview between Toby Fife, our Vice President of the Learning Lab at IOG, and Tom Gash shortly after the event.
So tell me what's happening in the UK.
The UK is facing extraordinary times at the moment. We're undergoing one of the biggest fiscal consolidation programs that we've had in the post-war era. And at the same time, the coalition government is undergoing one of the most radical reform agendas that it's had in the last 30, 40 years.
How is this reform agenda going to be different than others?
There are a number of themes underpinning the things that the coalition government are trying to do in the UK. One of the major themes I want to draw out is the idea of opening up public services, using a diverse range of private, voluntary sector providers and even public sector mutuals, as we call them in the UK, collectives of employees who form their own enterprises. These organisations will then be contracted by the government to provide services. Often they'll be paid in interesting ways, for example, for results only. We've just implemented a £700 million a year programme called the Work Programme, by which private providers are paid to get the long-term unemployed back to work. The private sector companies will only get paid if they actually get people back into work and if they keep them there.
Is this likely to work? Is it your sense that this specific program, the one you're talking about, is likely to succeed?
Well, the way government might see it is that effectively you don't pay if you don't get better results than you're getting currently, and that's a strongly attractive situation. But in fact, of course, if it goes wrong, you have big impacts on your welfare bill and the unemployment benefits that government pays. So actually there are significant risks to doing it, even if you can control the costs when private providers underperform if they do. Again,
so one of the biggest issues will be accountability?
Absolutely. The question of accountability runs through the question of markets in public services, because ultimately we have to ask, when service standards are falling, who will be held to account?
You have made the distinction between marketization and privatization. Could you explain it?
Yes, I mean, the way I see it is quite simple. Privatization is when the funding shifts from outside of the public sector and goes into the private domain, so individual users pay for service in some way. Marketization involves the funding staying within the public sector, so the public sector and government funds a service, but it's provided by private and voluntary sector actors.
If you're the Government of Canada, what lessons can they learn from what the UK is trying to do?
I think the important thing to notice from the UK system is that there are ways of doing things differently. And the thing for Canada to do, I think, is to look through the things that are happening in the UK and see whether these are relevant for the Canadian context, whether they might be politically viable, whether they practically make sense. And in a sense, there's a huge opportunity to learn from what's going well and what's not going well now.
Thank you.